Anyways, we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I apologize for that little technical error right there. That's my bad. But in this next segment, we are going to continue with my free agency grades because there was a lot of moves that ended up happening in free agency. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that a little bit more because, again, a lot of moves and I got a lot of opinions to share and only very little time to share them. So we are going to talk about Jason Tatum's extension with the Celtics. While it is a huge amount of money that they are signing and it puts the Boston Celtics into the second apron, it is well worth it because it ultimately resulted in a championship. So I have to give it an A+. Well, I'm going to give it an A. I apologize. But I have to give it a very high grade because how could I not? He won the championship, and until hindsight kicks in, like when the end of the contract is, like the 5 years when the contract expires, and given the amount of time, how many championships they can end up getting after that contract expires, then the actual opinions are going to be a little bit more clear. But as of this rate, they're fighting to go back-to-back, and they're fighting to keep their, starting lineup intact and continue to win championships. So I really don't have a problem with this huge max contract. Next, we have Tyrese Maxey getting a $204 million max deal with Philly. I talked about this a little bit, but I really skimmed over it because I wasn't entirely sure just, the deal and what it entails. But definitely an A+ move coming from the Philadelphia 76ers. He is a young player. He deserves to stay on the roster, and he deserves all the money that he gets. And the only problem really with this signing is the fact that this just puts the Sixers in the second apron and could potentially, I believe it puts them in the second apron, and it really could just mess up the franchise trying to get other players as well. But they do have a solid big three, and in my opinion, they could make a lot of noise. Now, next is Klay Thompson with the Mavs in the sign and trade. 3 years, $50 million. Now, pairing him up with Luka and Kyrie is a very solid pickup because they do need that solid catch and shooter for the team. They can run plays off the ball, cause, a bunch of distractions for the team that they would not really distractions for the team, but, so distractions so that way they could distract the team that they are going against. And so because of this, I have this as an A because, this makes total sense in my opinion. I mean, having someone to run off the ball while while Kyrie and Luka are doing something with the ball is going to be a lot better than just having those players literally just stand still and wait for them to get the ball when Luka and Kyrie make a move to the basket, which is a big problem. So next, we have Tobias Harris joining the Detroit Pistons for $52 million. It makes total sense for the 76ers to let this man walk because of his terrible performance in the elimination game. Now, I think, this is going to be the average case of a good player on a bad team, so his stats might be a little bit inflated going into this season and, playing for the Pistons. I give this a B simply because, again, it could be a simple case of good player, bad team. Like how the Wizards are, and honestly, I can't even say, scratch that, because I was going to compare this to like how Jordan Poole is with the Wizards, but Jordan Poole is awful on the Wizards, and everybody expected Jordan Poole to average 30 points per game, but he never did. Now, next we go Isaiah Hartenstein leaving the Knicks to go to OKC. Now, I think this is an A move coming in from the OKC because while they do have a starting center with Chet, Isaiah Hartenstein is going to be a great option coming off the bench. Excuse me. And it seemed like once OG was getting all of that money, it was almost guaranteed that the it was almost guaranteed that the Knicks weren't going to be able to re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein. So the OKC, I give them props for being able to pick up such a good player, and I give that an A. Next, we have Kelly Oubre returning to the 76ers. Now, while Kelly Oubre, isn't all that, in my opinion, as, a player, he's a very solid role player for the team, and while it does have an attitude, I remember he did flip a lot of the refs off. He did say F you to the refs. You could clearly see that in video clips and he did get fined for doing that. So filling out the roster around 2 stars on max contracts, it's going to be hard enough under the league's new CBA, with Paul George now joining them on a 3rd max deal. The Sixers were in a real danger of sacrificing their depth. But, Kelly Oubre, he brings tremendous value on a veteran minimum deal in Philadelphia last season, averaging 15, 5, 1 steal per game in 68 games. And there's a real chance that Oubre could have gotten more than from the contender possessing the full $12.9 million non-taxpayer mid-level exception. By signing for this amount, Oubre's new salary could fit the Sixers' $8 million room exception. So this is a pretty good signing for the 76ers, and I give it a B+. Next, we have Jalen Smith getting $27 million coming in from the Chicago Bulls. Now, I think this is a C- because this is just ridiculous amount of money for 3 years from a player that isn't really all that, and he's gonna be a backup power forward. So why are you giving a backup so much money? But that's just me. Now, next we have Isaiah Joe signing for $48 million for 4 years with the Thunder. And I give this an A- because, he is a solid player. And after waiving, he did get waived by the 76ers in 2022. He signed with OKC, became one of the better three-point shooters. And honestly, I genuinely just think this is a great pickup. And they need the roster that they have right now to be able to develop, and so that way they could end up winning a championship in the future. This is why they also signed Aaron Wiggins, getting $47 million from OKC, and I give this an A-. Again, these players, they were incredibly valuable to OKC and their success, so really no more need to talk about that. And we are running out of time, so I am going to speed things up a little bit. Drew Eubanks signed with the Jazz. I give that a D because that is just a horrible deal for 2 years, $10 million. For someone that isn't really that important for the roster, while they could use most of that to renegotiate Lauri Markkanen's contract and give him an extension, it was surprising to see that the Jazz's first order of business was to give Drew Eubanks a $10 million deal, which is why I give it a D. Next, we move on to Delon Wright, giving the Bucks some sort of depth, a 1-year, $3.3 million contract. I really think this is a very solid pickup. So I'm going to give it a B+. He is a very solid player. Now, he is 32 years old, which is really the only downside in my opinion, but still relatively solid player for the Bucks. Nicholas Batum reunites with the Clippers on a 2-year, $9.6 million contract. I have this at an A because Batum is, he was a very valuable asset for the Clippers when he was on it. He's 35 years old, but he's still a really good defender, and he can shoot and play whatever role they'll need him for the Clippers. So that's why I give him a solid grade. DeAnthony Melton signing to the Warriors on a 1-year, $12.8 million contract is, I think that's a little bit much, but his production more than makes up for it. He averages 11 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 3 assists on 36% shooting from 3 for the Sixers last season. So I'm going to give this a B+, or a B, just around that area. Aaron Holiday gets $10 million from the Houston Rockets. Now, while I don't really think that's I don't think that's a good signing simply because his production isn't all that. He's going to be making $5 million a year to average 6 points, 1 assist, and in 16 minutes and shooting 38% from three. Now, the three-point shooting percentage is fantastic, but again, that kind of production for $10 million for 2 years, I don't really think it's ideal for Houston, so I got to give it a C. I'm sorry, this is not it. Next is Goga Bidaze re-signing with the Magic. Again, forgive me if I botched that name. It is for 3 years on $25 million. Now, he's going to turn 25 in July, so there may be a hint of development in, like, I think he might develop into being a pretty solid player. So he did average 5 points, 4 rebounds, 1.3 assists, but he did also average 1.2 blocks in just 15 minutes. Now, per 75 possessions, he averages 12 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2.8 blocks. So his production could be phenomenal in the future if he does get more minutes. So I give that an A. Next, we have Gary Harris re-signing with the Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic. Oh, but aside from that, 2 years, $14 million. Now, they did get KCP, and Gary Harris, he's probably not going to be the starting lineup if they do get KCP, but he is a very solid player coming off of the bench, and he does average a considerable, a consistent 9 points and 1.4 threes while shooting 39% from the three-point line. So he's also a very solid defender, so he could be a very, very good, substitution coming in from the bench. So that's why I give it a B+. Then we have Chris Dunn returning to the Clippers. I also give that a B+ because he is one of the best defenders in his draft class. Or no, not in his draft class. I apologize for that. In his free agent class, I meant to say. And in just 20 minutes, he averaged 7 points, 4 assists, and was shooting 39% from three on Utah. So definitely a good pairing with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, in my opinion. Then finally, we have Mo Bamba joining the Clippers, and I give that a B just because, I'm not a really big fan of Mo Bamba. I also don't know how much the contract is going to be worth. It's still to be announced, according to Woj. It's a 1-year contract. So again, I have no idea how much money he's going to be making on that contract, but he only averaged 7 points, 5 rebounds, 1.2 blocks, and only 1 3-pointer. And quite honestly, the only real thing that he's really acknowledged for is the fact that he is on the song. Like, his name is a song, Mo Bamba. I'm sure you guys know exactly what that song is and how popular it was. But aside from that, that is all I have for you guys in this final segment. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Also, I should mention that was my own list and my own opinions. However, I did get a lot of the notes from Bleacher Report. I just wanted to point that out so that way you guys would know. And yes, that is still all that I have for this final segment. And as usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is GSMCPodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. But that is, again, that's all I have for you guys in this segment. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna